So today we are going to start our unit on alcohol. The first lesson is about alcohol use and abuse. We are going to cover several important topics in this lesson. Lesson objectives. Our specific NJCCCS or state standards for this lesson relate to Standard 2.3, Strand B, numbers 2.3.4.B.4 and 2.3.6.B.4. Our objectives for this lesson include: you should be able to identify key terms including alcohol, intoxicated, blood alcohol concentration, cirrhosis, ulcer, alcohol abuse, and alcoholism. You will identify at least 4 dangers of using alcohol. You will be able to describe the short-term effects of alcohol use. You will be able to explain the ways that alcohol can damage the body systems. These are the long-term effects on the body. You will be able to explain how being addicted to alcohol can be harmful to your health. And you will analyze why drinking is risky for a woman who is pregnant. Let's get to it. Like I said before, here are key terms to learn: alcohol, intoxicated, blood alcohol concentration, ulcer, alcohol abuse, cirrhosis, and alcoholism. Let's see if we can match the definitions with our terms. So on the top half of the screen, we have our terms, and on the bottom half, we have the definitions. So the first definition here is being drunk. Which word does this match? That's right, intoxicated. Our next definition is a drug created by a chemical reaction in some foods, especially fruits and grains. This goes with alcohol. Great job. All right, now which word means using alcohol in ways that are unhealthy, illegal, or both? All right, alcohol abuse. The amount of alcohol in the blood is blood alcohol concentration. That's correct. A disease in which a person has a physical and psychological need for alcohol is which word? That's right, alcoholism. Scarring and destruction of liver tissue. Which one is this? This is, that's right, cirrhosis. And then finally the last one, an open sore in the stomach lining. This one, of course, goes with ulcer. Great job, everybody. All right, so what are some of the dangers of using alcohol? Let's see if we can name some. Impaired judgment, or not being able to make good decisions, feeling cloudy or foggy, like how this girl feels. Her mind is all blurry, like the picture. Loss of motor skills, like not being able to walk a straight line, or something so simple as touching your finger to your nose. Or when the intoxication has gotten worse and you're falling down drunk and not even able to stand up. Another danger is damage to the body organs, like the brain, heart, liver, kidneys, and more. Alcohol can make you feel very ill or sick and can cause nausea and vomiting. And folks, the toilet is really the last place you want to put your face. Addiction. Drinking alcohol for a long period of time consistently can lead a person to become addicted. This is when you need the alcohol to be able to function. Not having it when you are addicted can make you feel sick. Accidents. Causing a car accident after drinking, or injuries to yourself or others, like falling and hitting your head or getting into a fight. And alcohol can also cause death, either through an alcohol overdose or a lethal accident. Alcohol can harm the body in two ways: through short-term effects, which will resolve if drinking stops, and long-term effects, which can be permanent. Some of the short-term effects that happen to the brain are impaired memory and concentration, decreased reaction time and coordination, slurred speech, blurry vision. These all would make it kind of hard to drive a car, right? Reduced inhibitions and poor judgment, which can lead to an entire new set of problems. And alcohol poisoning. This causes unconsciousness. The large amount of alcohol decreases your brain's ability to remember when to breathe, and also suppresses or even stops the gag reflex, which prevents choking, which can lead to death. Now, these are all just effects on the brain. Next, we have the liver. And the short-term ways in which it is affected. As you have learned, the liver acts as a filter in the body. It can filter out about a ½ ounce of alcohol per hour from the blood and send it to the kidneys. While the liver removes the alcohol, it slacks on its other jobs, like sending glucose out into the body. And this delay causes hypoglycemia. The hypoglycemia causes headaches, nausea, vomiting, dizziness, thirst, and fatigue. All of the symptoms of a hangover. Repeated use can cause a fatty liver, which is reversible if drinking stops. So these things are all effects on the liver. And next, some other organs and their short-term effects. The heart. Initially, the heart rate increases. You might see people with flushed faces when they start to feel the effects of alcohol. But then the heart rate slows down, very slow. The blood vessels. They widen and create a false sense of warmth. Blood pressure can drop because of the slow heart rate and the large dilated blood vessels. The stomach. As we have read, alcohol can cause vomiting, which can cause choking, which can cause what? Death. And last, we have the kidneys. The short-term effects will get rid of the alcohol by increasing urination. This causes dehydration and headaches and dizziness. Now, class, these things are all reversible. Your body is a magnificent thing that can repair itself to a certain extent. So now let's talk about the long-term effects on the same organs. The long-term effects of alcohol on the brain are the destruction of the brain cells, nervous system disorders like seizures, neuropathy, which means damage to the nerves in the body causing muscle weakness, difficulty swallowing, and inability to feel when you need to go to the bathroom, and memory loss or dementia. And with this, I am speaking about permanent loss of memory. Now we are going to watch a short video that talks about the brain and the liver. You will be able to actually see the effects of alcohol on both organs compared to healthy ones.
Dr. Rodriguez, come on up, will you?
Thanks.
Come over here with me. Show us what we have here,
Well,
Doctor.
first of all, look at the two brains. One is much smaller than the other. Guess which one is the alcoholic's brain? Not the normal size one, the little one. So CAT scans are done of people that are alcoholics as they get older. All the time, their brain is smaller.
Well, show us what we're looking at.
So here's a brain, right, that's been cut in half. But look at this brain. This one, as opposed to this one, already has a hole in it.
So this brain is smaller.
Much
it
smaller.
has holes in it.
Absolutely.
And it is basically like a muscle atrophy. This brain is shrinking up.
Absolutely.
Which is why I said it's kind of unfair for me to try to debate with you because your brain is shrinking up. And it isn't even through growing yet. Seriously, your brain grows until you're 25. And when you do this to your brain during the developmental stages, then it doesn't get the growth that it needs. Okay, go ahead. Let's take a look at the liver here.
Next, the liver. All right? The liver gets irritated. Alcohol sedates and irritates. It sedates your brain, it irritates your liver every single time. All right, a normal liver, if you look at it, looks kind of pinkish. All right? Kind of gross, huh? I can tell you're almost about to pass out. Good. All right, this one is a cirrhotic liver. If you were to feel it, this one's much softer. This one feels like scar tissue.
So this is an alcoholic liver.
Correct.
And that is very likely what binge drinking is doing to his liver.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, no doubt about it.
What do you think about this? Any comment?
Well, it's pretty straightforward, I guess. It's killing me, but I still feel like I have a hold on it. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Because that's your brain. You're impaired. I don't know what your excuse is. I don't get why you have been so passive in all of this. Nick says his mom, Kathy, actually buys him beer when she's in a good mood. Buys him the poison that is killing him. Well, I'm going to see how good a mood she is when I have a few questions for her when we come back.
So you could see the difference between the healthy brain and liver and the alcoholic brain and liver. Big difference in color and sizes, huh? Okay. Now, so continuing with the liver, the effects on the liver include scarring and destruction of liver tissue, liver failure, liver cancer, and death. Now in this picture, like the video, you can see a side-by-side comparison of a cirrhotic liver, the one on top, and a normal liver, the one on the bottom. Note the difference in color, size, and texture. The one on the bottom is smooth. The one on the top looks like it's got dirt in it. It looks like a scab. So there's the difference, and it's much bigger. It's so swollen. And next we have some other major organs and their effects of long-term alcohol use. The heart. A person can develop an irregular heartbeat and the heart muscle damage, which leads to many different heart problems. The blood vessels. They will have decreased elasticity and become more fragile and stiff. This leads to high blood pressure and increased risk of stroke. The stomach. Ulcers can form in the lining of the stomach and esophagus from excessive drinking and through vomiting. Stomach acid can eat away the lining on the inside of the stomach and cause ulcers. Here is a picture of an ulcer. And drinking can also cause varices, which are swollen blood vessels. And they form in the stomach and esophagus and can cause bleeding and anemia or low blood levels. And then we have the kidneys. The increased blood pressure can cause the kidneys to fail and shut down completely. These people would need dialysis or blood filtering by a machine to be able to stay alive. Addiction and your health. How would being addicted to alcohol affect your health? Well, addiction is a psychological or physical need for a drug or other substance. The addict either thinks that they need it to be able to function, or the need becomes so strong that the person will actually feel sick without it, or may even get sick from not having it. Alcohol becomes the most important thing in that person's life. Nothing else matters as much as getting the next drink. Not family, not school, not activities, not friends. The person is trapped by their addiction, and alcohol is the most important thing. Alcohol abuse and alcoholism. So why do people abuse alcohol? There are many reasons people come up with to justify their abuse. They are worried or upset about something. They may feel insecure around someone they like and are trying to get the courage to talk to them. You may have heard of this called beer muscles. When you drink, your inhibitions decrease and you seemingly get some guts. But when you fall over or vomit on them, I really don't think they will be all that interested in you. And some people use alcohol to deal with their problems. But alcohol will not make their problems go away. The problems just come back and are sometimes worse than if they would have just faced the problem head on. Now we must remember, alcoholism is a disease, a curable disease that needs the proper treatment. Usually counseling and sometimes hospitalization are necessary. Alcoholics can recover with help. Help from the many available support groups for people suffering with alcoholism and their families. Some well-known organizations are Alcoholics Anonymous or Al-Anon, and for teens, Alateen. Recognizing alcoholism. This is really important. Recognizing a friend or family member with a problem. Some of the common signs of alcoholism are frequently getting drunk or drinking alone. People will stop participating in their usual activities. They will isolate themselves to hide the addiction. They may make excuses for drinking. Oh, I just drink to relax after a long day. Or, I have so many problems right now in my life, it helps me to sleep. They may also have blackouts or periods of memory loss. like not knowing what happened the night before, waking up in jail after being arrested for a DUI, waking up next to a stranger in a strange place, or your friends posting pictures of you on social media when you were passed out with vomit on you, or videos of you falling down for everyone to see and comment on. Very embarrassing. And lastly, they may even refuse they were ever drinking at all. Alcohol and pregnancy. These two things do not mix at all. There is no safe amount of alcohol when you are pregnant. Fetal alcohol syndrome is when a baby is exposed to and harmed by alcohol from the mother drinking while pregnant. Alcohol travels in the blood through the umbilical cord to the unborn baby. This can cause problems at any stage of pregnancy. A baby with fetal alcohol syndrome can have physical and developmental birth defects, like a small head, a small brain. As you can see in the picture, the one on the left is a normal child's brain. The one on the right was a baby with FAS. The brain is smaller, and the line that runs through the middle is very crooked on the FAS brain. And on the normal brain, it's very straight. These children will also have speech and behavior and learning problems. The babies may also have seizures and poor memory. So be safe, not sorry. Now we're going to watch a 13-minute YouTube video on fetal alcohol syndrome, and then we will discuss it afterwards. If you have questions, write them down on your paper, and here we go.
Carly will never be able to live independently. Carly will always need a lot of structure and support. It would actually, I think, be rather cruel to throw Carly out in the world and expect her to function like other people function because of the limitations she's got to go through every day. Carly has problems with memory. She has problems with judgment, with reason. Carly has problems with perception, and how she sees the world is much different than how most people view the world. Of course, Carly can't understand money because math is one of the areas that's very weak for Carly, as it is with most individuals with fetal alcohol syndrome. So we have to help her to count out her money the night before. We brought home what we believe to be a very healthy baby girl. We never really understood that Carly had like a medical condition, like certainly a lifelong medical condition. Now we know what it is. Now we know she has fetal alcohol syndrome, and we understand through all the research that's being done that these are some of the limitations these folks have.
They're not there. Jesus Christ, this erupts.
Am I making the right choices? Am I asking too much? Because sometimes he appears so normal. And of course, all of the records that I brought from the hospital stated that the mother drank, stated that she did drugs, stated that there was no prenatal care. And you send him with $2 into the store, and he came out and he looked at me and he said, I don't know how much that is. I don't know what to buy. And everybody feels, because they have all their little fingers and their little toes, well, baby looks okay to me, must be all right. Not true. Not till you get into school. Not till you have to put that brain in play.
The effects of alcohol on a developing child are all too real for Lynn and her adopted son. Her son suffers from fetal alcohol syndrome, caused by his birth mother's alcohol use during pregnancy. When a mother drinks, she exposes her baby to alcohol. Beer, wine, hard liquor, wine coolers, all can cause birth defects. The National Organization for Fetal Alcohol Syndrome in Washington, D.C. works to help the thousands of children and families whose lives are impacted by fetal alcohol syndrome.
The latest figures suggest that as many as 12,000 newborns every year are affected with the full fetal alcohol syndrome, and then as many as 3 times greater are affected by alcohol-related birth defects or alcohol-related neurodevelopmental disorder. So all told, in the neighborhood of 50,000 newborns every year are affected.
Scientists know that all people affected cannot be identified by physical features alone. But alcohol-related birth defects were first recognized because of the way severely affected children looked.
Okay, now your ears.
Only doctors can make a correct diagnosis of fetal alcohol syndrome. The facial features of FAS include small eyelid openings, short upturned nose, long upper lip from nose to mouth with a thin red border and a deficient central groove, reduced head size. Fetal alcohol syndrome affects brain development as well. In San Diego, California, Dr. Terry Jernigan researches the effects of alcohol on brain development.
It was known that there were certain anomalies of brain development that occurred in especially the severest form of fetal alcohol syndrome. And one of the most striking of those were abnormalities of the midline of the brain, including complete agenesis of the corpus callosum. You see here this curved white structure in the midline of the brain that we see in this 12-year-old normal individual is the corpus callosum. That's the normal size and shape of the corpus callosum. You can see that in this case, which is a 14-year-old fetal alcohol syndrome case, there really is no such structure. There is no corpus callosum. This we refer to as agenesis of the corpus callosum. This is a case which we would call dysgenesis of the corpus callosum. You can see there is a faint, you can see that the structure is there to some extent. There are parts of it that are there, but it's much thinner and much reduced in size relative to the normal corpus callosum here.
Tell me this, what are you going to be when you grow up?
Dr. Luther Robinson is a pediatrician in Buffalo, New York, who is familiar with the identification and treatment of FAS.
People who have fetal alcohol syndrome have eyes that are smaller than normal, and that's because alcohol affects the developing eye as it comes out of the brain. People who have fetal alcohol syndrome have smaller heads than average, and that's called microcephaly. And again, that reflects the impact of alcohol or the byproducts of alcohol on the developing brain and nervous system. People who have fetal alcohol syndrome, a number will have differences in the lines in their hands, and those lines in their hands represent fetal movement. And the fetal hand starts to move at about 8 weeks after the baby is conceived. And so we know that movement depends on how the nerves go to the muscles, and the muscles start to make the contractions and pull on the tendons and so forth. And so again, we're talking about a problem of differences in movement long before the baby is even born, sometimes before a woman even knows that she's pregnant. The profiles of children and teenagers and adults who have fetal alcohol syndrome relate to difficulties with problem solving. If you visited my apartment and I said, get the knives and forks, you would think knives and forks likely are in the kitchen, in the cupboard, in a drawer with the spoons. And that's how we would problem solve that problem, that challenge. But for a person who has fetal alcohol syndrome, some of those associations don't seem to fit. So that problem solving is especially difficult. So whereas you and I just take for granted, go to the kitchen, look in the drawer, pull it open, look for the spoons and forks, and here's a knife, that doesn't happen with some people with fetal alcohol syndrome. Pull out the knife, it's working almost by trial and error to come up with an answer. And that's just not an effective or efficient way to do problem solving. And that's one of the challenges of people who have fetal alcohol syndrome.
Scientists like Dr. Kathy Sulik at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill are working to find out how alcohol interferes with development. They have discovered that the facial features of FAS can be reproduced in mice.
In our laboratory, our research has shown that alcohol kills some cells in the brain. It kills them in just specific regions. For example, it kills the cells that will make up the midline of the brain, the cells that are involved in connecting one hemisphere to the other. If we treat embryos at a slightly later stage with high doses of alcohol, we get effects on different parts of the brain. So the spectrum of abnormalities that alcohol can cause and what you see in any one individual very much depends on the pattern of the mother's drinking, because different cells in the brain are sensitive at different periods of time. It's important because people don't know they're pregnant yet at those stages, and some of the most severe problems that alcohol can cause can be caused by insult very, very early in development. We've mostly worked with really early stages of development, stages that would correspond to the 3rd and 4th week of human development. It's a time when the human embryo is about the size of Roosevelt's ear on the dime, so it would only be about that long. Sometimes with animal studies, you don't really feel very comfortable extrapolating from mouse to man, for example. But we know that at the stages when alcohol can cause very severe damage to the developing brain and face, that the mouse embryo and the human embryo are very, very similar. This shows a mouse embryo at a time that would correspond to early in the 4th week in human development. The mouse looks very similar to the human at this stage. This is the developing face and brain. Here's the developing heart. It would begin to beat at about this stage in development. The part of the embryo that alcohol selectively affects at this stage in development is right along the edge of this portion. And here we can see that the cells that comprise the edge there are stained dark blue. That shows us that those cells are dead or dying. Those cells will eventually form the center of the face and also the center of the brain. And that's the area that's severely affected in children with fetal alcohol syndrome. If we look at a mouse embryo at a slightly later stage, it should normally look like this. The eye should be here. One of the nostrils should be there, the other there, and this is the area where the mouth is. In an affected embryo whose mother was treated with high doses of alcohol, we see that that portion of the face is quite abnormal. It looks too narrow in the midline because it's missing part of its cells. This normal individual, we should see this central structure. In one that is affected, we see that that central structure is missing. This tissue should end up contributing to the center of the adult brain, that is the corpus callosum. Alcohol damages not only the brain, but basically every organ system that we have. We found that it can make facial malformations that are very severe, like cleft lip. They can have problems with their hearts, ventricular septal defects, that's more commonly referred to as holes in your heart. They can have problems with their kidneys, for example, missing kidneys or kidneys that are much too small. Certainly learning disabilities are probably what we consider the minor end of the spectrum of defects caused by alcohol in terms of severity, but it certainly isn't minor in terms of the effect that it has on an individual's life.
Alcohol-related birth defects last a lifetime. For Linda and the thousands of other parents who struggle with the permanent effects of FAS, the future remains unclear.
I worry about whether he'll be able to hold down a job, whether he'll be able to go into the store and know what he can buy for 20 bucks. Yeah, I hope that he makes it on his own. I want him to have it all. So that's my biggest hope, is that he has a job, and he has children, and he has a happy life.
Doctors and scientists don't know what a safe level of alcohol is for a developing child. Health advisors warn any woman who is considering pregnancy or is pregnant to avoid the use of any alcohol.
Okay, so let's talk about this video. First, does anyone have any questions about anything that happened in the video? One of the things that they talked about was, remember the picture with the normal child's brain and the child with fetal alcohol syndrome? You know, that middle line that went down the middle of the brain that you could see was nice and straight in the normal brain. And in the other side of the picture, the fetal alcohol baby, you couldn't even really see the line. It was really crooked and you know, not obvious at all. So that's the area where the corpus callosum would be, the midline of the brain. So some key points in the video were the amount of alcohol the mother drinks and the developmental stage of the fetus will determine the severity of the effect on the baby. As we saw in the video, there are some facial characteristics that may be present in babies with fetal alcohol syndrome, but only a trained doctor can make an accurate diagnosis. And they observe and collect a lot of information to make that diagnosis. People with fetal alcohol syndrome may not understand or remember certain things. And lastly, fetal alcohol syndrome and alcohol-related birth defects are 100% preventable by not drinking. Are there any other questions on what we watched in the video? Okay. Up this lesson with a little review. Who has questions about anything on the first slide? Okay, class. Well, great questions. I will see you tomorrow, and we will start working on our project. Evening.